The biggest lie I think most of you would have heard is that
Only one unit left. Sold out. Almost last chance. Limited inventory. High demand. Price increasing. Sold out.
the inventory is over or it won't be available if you don't make a choice.
People in public are like very optimistic about it, but in private, a lot of people are scared.
So market, every time there is a crisis, there is an opportunity and there is a caution.
And the last. So one thing you wish buyers would stop doing. So Sudhamshu, everybody is talking about west of Hyderabad, be it Kokapet, Narsingi, and hundreds of crores that people are talking about over there. But somewhere down the line, the east and the south of Hyderabad have been quietly delivering the results without any hype. Okay. So could you name 3 corridors, be it in south or be it in east, that have been delivering the results?
East Hyderabad is predominantly an end user driven market, where there is a lot of value for an end user. You have good gated communities available in the sub 6,000 or 6,500 rupees square feet market, and you have offices available at a good rental numbers and all that. So in terms of space availability, the East Hyderabad provides the best value for money. South is emerging, the new South Hyderabad market, which is where the hype cycle has just started with Future City and other projects that are announced in that catchment. You have a lot of villa projects coming up. You have about between the Tukkuguda junction on the ORR and Peddagolkonda junction and also Raviryal junction, where a lot of villa projects are coming up, where you get good villa projects or villa opportunities available at this catchment for a good price point.
Can we focus on the price when you say good price point?
See, we are getting anything between 8,000 rupees per square feet to a good developer is at about 9,000 rupees. When you go to compare it with West, this could be about 2,500, 3,000 rupees or 4,000 rupees lower. And also what's happening in South and East, especially East. East also gives you an opportunity where the cost of living is much lower than West Hyderabad. You have very robust infrastructure in terms of educational institutions, hospitals and movie theaters, shopping experiences. South is slowly getting there. It's still not there, but you have some very good educational institutions already within the airport premises or outside of airport, or you have the other international schools like Aga Khan or Manchester Global. Those kind of schools have already come up, and slowly the evolution of other social infrastructure will happen in the next few years, in 3 to 5 years or 6 years. It will be an accelerated infrastructure growth there in terms of social infrastructure. In terms of value, a person gets per square feet in terms of the overall experience as such, East still presents a very conducive value for them, in the sense they have access from the metro to the core city. You can still come back into East because there are 2 major junctions, Uppal, Nagol and LB Nagar, both terminate in East, and the interconnectivity proposal and the new airport line also will start from East Hyderabad, and the extension is happening up to Hayat Nagar and all these places. All these corridors are very good corridors where you can get into high-tech city or into the core IT corridor of Raidurg within about 55 minutes or so, staying in East Hyderabad through metro and using metro. The same timeline you're having today if you're living in Miapur or upper triangle like Mokila and all these places. So people need to explore East for a end use. This whole it is a mature market. Don't see a lot of opportunity in terms of investments, but in terms of end use cases, it presents a very good opportunity. South, you will have if you're a villa buyer, today is the right time to go buy a villa in South market, because the price point at which you're getting a villa there is very attractive. A lot of different configurations are also available. You have somebody wanting to buy a 180 square yards to about 800 or 1,000 or a 2,000 square yard opportunity is also available.
Right.
Today, that multiple configuration, multiple project sizes from a 5 acres to 50 acre project sizes are also available. Depending on your ability to travel, it is again, it has no urban infrastructure at this point of time. You're entirely dependent on your own private transport or the distance distances are a little more today. It suits a particular audience today. And then you have the Shamshabad, Satamrai zone where you have a lot of these new gated communities are coming up, or you can, where the price points are slightly lower and they deliver better value for money than most projects in the Upper West. Wherein because they're close to the airport, there's a chance that the metro infrastructure will be accessible to these locations before being available in locations like Kollur, Mokila, even Kokapet for that matter. These locations could have metro access better or a public infrastructure access better before the other locations in the core west zone.
So it's a safe zone to invest in, like?
It's a safe zone to live.
To live, okay.
There is a huge difference in the sense that, investment is a separate subject and, living experience is a different subject.
So this is if anybody as end user is looking out for something in budget, which say about like 6,000-7,000 rupees a square feet.
Yes.
This is the number one spot that you would recommend.
Yes, definitely.
So the entire lifestyle, they would get it better than the West over here. Economical price.
Economically, yes.
Fair enough.
Yes. Better, good or better is a subjective thing, but in terms of economics, yes, it's a better option. And access, today, let's take healthcare as an opportunity. If you look at East, you have some fantastic small hospitals, with doctors who are like, who are specialized in their departments, and they're setting up small mom and pop hospitals. So where you have access to better healthcare at a much cheaper cost. Compared to the West, where you're probably dependent on full-fledged corporate hospitals and so on and so forth. So that way, East presents a very good opportunity.
So you've been in the industry for 20 plus years, right? You have seen all the hypes from the dot-com boom post that to the hikes in 2004, 2005, the land prices started going high, and then there was a bubble burst. And then there was COVID, most recently you've seen all the highs, all the lows and all that stuff, right? So what's your current take on real estate? Like, when people in public are like very optimistic about it, but in private, a lot of people are scared. So which side are you on, and what's your take on this?
So I've been in industry since 2006 when the first major boom started in around post the Congress government at that point of time. We had seen a huge upcycle, and then there was a worldwide economic crisis in the 2008-9 window. Then we had a prolonged Telangana agitation where the markets were very subdued.
Right.
Then we had the COVID crisis in 2019, 2020 most predominantly 2021 we had COVID crisis. So market, every time there is a crisis, there is an opportunity and there is a caution. So any hype cycle presents or any down cycle presents both opportunity and caution. So this time, one of the problems is the global macroeconomic perspective is a little shaky. We don't know. For the first time, our core services industry, which is IT and IT services industry, which we are export dependent, right? So that industry seemed to be a little affected, wherein the AI, we don't know the direction exactly, as in like, there are no clear predictions as to which way things could go. So that is one big concern. But having said that, the headline numbers are all okay. Right. What do we mean by that? Our export data on both, IT services is growing at a very healthy rate. Our GCC numbers, the number of new IT companies that are coming in, global capability centers, they're setting shop. We are second in the country at this moment behind Bangalore. We had about 350 odd GCC centers last year alone. So the headline numbers are all fantastic in the sense that, our pharma growth is very good. We are beating the global benchmarks. Our pharma export growth numbers have been fantastic. Our aerospace export growth numbers, defense industry numbers have been fantastic. So three major economic drivers or three major industries in Hyderabad, they seem to be telling a good story. But definitely, what is the caution part of it? The caution part of it, this is a funny industry. Funny part is that we are sitting on the highest inventory position at this point of time in terms of residential inventory. We have a 22 to 28 month, depending on which report you are. But broadly, the most of the market will agree that the inventory position is very high. It is at the historically highest position. But then the land prices don't seem to be in line with that. We are the only city where we have the highest inventory and the highest land price growth. in terms of the acreage land price growth, which you must have seen the headline auction numbers of 200 crores or 250 crores and
Just
stuff like
yesterday
that.
there was a second in Raidurg for 200
second
odd
auction.
crores.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So you're seeing headline auction numbers, not only Raidurg, something like outside airport today, it's a 35 crore auction number today per acre. In the recently concluded housing board auctions. So the auction numbers are telling a very different story to the macro environment in which we are in. See, today what worries me is that the project cycles have become, like from 3 years, they've become to 5 to 7 years today.
Wow.
So the developer has to be very good in terms of their cash flow management. We're building high rises where cash flow management is very, very important. In a low rise building, if you have a bad 6 months, nothing is going to happen. You can bring money from other financial sources and you can do it. But in these projects, wherein 2,000, 3,000 crore projects that people are attempting to do, there are some developers whose balance sheets are not healthy. So people who are investing with these kind of developers where the project cycles are like 5 to 7 years, this worries me quite a bit.
Right.
And also what worries me is that do we have the technical bandwidth in the city to be handling so many of these high-rise projects, not only in terms of construction bandwidth, even in terms of the economic bandwidth or in terms of the sales bandwidth or, every facet of the industry. Do we have enough bandwidth? Because it has not been an organic growth. Suddenly we have high rises happening so fast. So the industry hasn't built this organically. Like, you build first 5 high rises, then 20 high rises. So the high rise growth has been very fast.
Right.
Now today, every micro market from north to east to west to south, every landowner is only asking for a high rise project. So it's almost becoming like, one high rise per colony to only high rises in few catchments. That is, and the urban infrastructure generally in our country unfortunately doesn't catch up so fast.
Right.
So that is another problem with how are you going to be handling the entire urban infrastructure chaos that's going to come in with regard to water or with regard to power or with regard to, even simple things like police stations, fire stations, medical institutions, schools and all that. Today in West Corridor, it is becoming economically unviable to be setting up anything else other than doing residential projects.
Right, because of the land.
Because of the land prices. So that kind of worries me. Everybody, everything looks great on Excel, but somehow it isn't.
True.
So there are underlying cracks. The industry seems to be overlooking it. The analysts seem to be overlooking it. But there are definitely underlying cracks. But the cracks are very different for different companies and different setups, different micro markets. We cannot generalize that all companies are facing financial issues or all projects are facing them. But definitely some projects are facing them. Some companies are facing them. So the customer has to be cautiously optimistic. I'm not saying defer your decision for another 6 months or 8 months, the prices are going to change or whatever it is. They might be stagnant. They might hold on for a while, but it is very important to be very cautiously optimistic. Evaluate your opportunity very carefully. Look at options. Look at 5-6 options before you make a decision. Take time, evaluate it properly. Purely look at everything in terms of living experience.
Right.
In terms of how it kind of, if you don't need to buy it immediately, then maybe you can defer it.
Oh, you can defer it. Right.
It's not like, but you be in the market, you keep evaluating, take the evaluation time from 2 months to maybe 4 months, and
so it's more of a window shopping phase.
No, it is more about, today information is the key metric. Gather as much information as you can, analyze floor plans, analyze layouts, analyze everything that is available to you, because a lot of information today is available. Talk to property consultants, brokers, the sales partners at the companies, and then take an informed decision. It is not, there are no predictions of, I can't say it is going to collapse or anything of that kind, but I would be very, very cautious at this point. Right? But I'm optimistic in the sense that, there's some good headline numbers also.
Okay. You've dealt with thousands of buyers, but tell me about one client, a person whose decision genuinely changed how you think about this business, about money, about people. Who were they and what did they do? You want to talk this?
Okay. Can I be more generic in a way that...
whatever that you, just be yourself.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So 20 years, we were just discussing that, right? You have dealt with multiple people, multiple projects, multiple customers out there. Any one particular customer or any one particular story that changed the way you looked at this industry, the way you looked at money, the way you looked at housing, your customers, anything like, one particular bank?
In the last 20 years, there are like a number of stories in the sense that each story, each space, for instance, each space will have a story behind it.
Right.
In the beginning, we would take a very generic position as to this would be X buyer's mindset and all. But what we've realized is that all 1,000 stories that we've dealt with are different. In the sense that each story has a different reason to buy, a different purpose to acquire an asset, or whether it is an office space, whether it is a retail shop, or whether it is a plot or a residential opportunity. Each space looks at the space that we are creating with a different intent, and the customer is buying with an exactly different intent as such. Each story has a very different, but every time the space gets occupied and the way space gets repurposed according to their needs, it is a genuine surprise. As in, like, the way you visualize, the customer will always surprise you with his own ideas, the way they bring life to that space. Ultimately, we are only creating a bare shell, right? It is the customer who will bring in they will bring in their colors, their taste, their life, their, somebody might have 2 kids, somebody might have 1 kid, somebody is taking it for a retail store, somebody is building a hotel on top of it. So they bring a lot of life into that. Always surprises us every time we walk in after a project is completed, when the residents have occupied, and how it evolves over a period of time. When we walk back into those houses, it's always a nice warm feeling,
right?
Because we've left it with a lot of emptiness and it suddenly gets filled. And when the customers give you a positive feedback as to how it is, the whole experience has been comforting for them.
Right.
They're genuine problems also. The customers are always going to tell you this is that right or that is wrong. But the genuineness, in the sense that we always receive a warm feedback from the customers that, this space, the way we've visualized it, that is how it has turned out. I think that experience is very, very important. Like a couple of years back, post pandemic, one experience, there was this one particular lady who was genuinely interested in one of the units. And then, what happened was that the husband was not very keen, and, but she chased at it. She asked me to hold the unit for about a good 2.5-3 months, which is not an industry practice. But somehow we felt that, she wanted it at that time to convince, and I went to her house after it, and finally the husband had to give in and, finally had to buy. When I went in, there was a genuine happiness, and no transaction ever gave me so much joy as that particular transaction. It was not just about money. Somebody wanting the space that we've put together, the way they wanted it. I think that's the most satisfying feeling that you as a developer today, because your space is being wanted, and the way they visualized it. A very young couple, starting out, it's like, so for them to take that call, to take that bet on you, and and a year down the line when you walk into that house, it's done very nicely, very elegantly and all. So that gives you a lot of joy. Nothing. Of course, the balance sheets and all that are there, but how people imagine your spaces, how they put together their life into that spaces. I think that's the most satisfying thing for us.
That's pretty awesome. It's got the emotion behind it, because in a market today wherein the sales team creates that FOMO, so many units left, it's going to go by the weekend, tell me a yes or a no.
Yes.
And you're holding it for almost 3 months for them.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Developers are sitting on land prices and land parcels, that they bought in 2021, 2022, and they got them at peak prices, right? And with the sales velocity, which is kind of slow right now in the market, where do you think it's going to head? Are they going to be projects are going to take longer to close, or what is the?
Definitely, land banks are, people are sitting on land banks. But like we discussed in previous question also, the project cycles are getting longer. It's a 5 to 7 year cycles now. So we've not seen a major slowdown in terms of new launches. The new launches continue to happen because 70% of the market is still dependent on joint development sites, wherein, prominent Hyderabad-based developers even today are dependent on joint developments rather than acquiring big chunks of land. There are very few companies like Apanna and My Home which do a large land bank strategy, but rest of them, pretty much the mid-scale developers, are dependent on joint development agreements. So typically joint development agreements take a year and a half to structure, and then there is a finite timeline. So we will continue to launch projects and continue to put together inventory. So from a customer point of view, where they have to be very cautious in the sense is that you have to now be very sure about the sales velocity, the kind of project timelines that the developer is completing, following those project timelines, because in a high-rise project, once the project timeline goes for a toss, it is very difficult for the project to be completed on time. Generally, if a 3 months wasted in summer would result in about 9 months of the total project getting delayed. There are seasons where a lot of work happens on a site, and there are seasons where work gets a little slower, and so on and so forth. So the customer has to be a little cautious as to where he is going to be putting his money. In terms of, from a developer side, today, a lot of debt is available still in the market. There are a lot of NBFC lending, AIF lending that is happening for a developer today. But and also there are a lot of private investors who are still willing to bet on real estate as a market. As in, the investor appetite is still there. As in the big investor, not the small investor. But the big investor appetite is still there. So the headline auction numbers are reflecting that. But we have to be very cautious in terms of debt as an option at this point of time, because the debt numbers are crossing to numbers where it is not very comfortable for the industry, because from project finances which are at about 12.5% to AIF finances today which is between 18 to 21%. The cost of money is increasing, and as the risk increases, the cost of money increases. So developers have to be very, very cautious in terms of what kind of debt they build on their book. It is very important to manage that number. And there is also a growing tribe of developers who are building portfolios for listing their companies. They want to list their companies, they want to go public, in the next 3 years, 5 years. So they are building inventory positions and so on and so forth. But from a customer standpoint of view, you have to do your due diligence better. You have to look for, the information that is not published. Like, for instance, you can check on the debt ratings of prominent developers. It is publicly available information, whether it is on CRISIL or other such platforms. You can read about it, or you can simply ask any of your AI tools to do that for you. And also look at, if you see a negative rating on a developer, you have to be a little cautious about that developer at this point of time.
Now, since we are on this topic of, 2021, 2022, and land prices and inventory being there, there's another aspect to this, that there are gorillas coming in the market, especially in Hyderabad. Like, it was unheard of the kind of money that's being pumped into the city with the big brands. Be it like a Godrej to a Shobha to a Prestige, or even other bigger brands. Right? Hyderabad has some prominent big players. And then there are tier 2, level 2 mid developers, and then there are small developers. And the premium developers, and all of it. How are each one of this going to get affected with this? One is land prices are exorbitant. There's already too much of stock left. 3, these big players are coming with unlimited money. All right. And 4 is what's with these mid-range to a little not so exorbitant developers like.
So there are two categories of developers broadly emerging, not only in Hyderabad but the entire country at this point of time. There are listed players and there are unlisted players.
Right.
So that is the broad categorization we can take at this point of time. A listed player invariably has to be in multiple markets for him to fuel his growth numbers, or in terms of delivering those revenue numbers.
Right.
They have to, or to manage risk for their investors. They have to be in at least 5 to 6 cities, or at least 3 cities, and so on and so forth. So most of the listed players are there today in Hyderabad market because it's a large urban metropolis.
Right.
So it features on everybody's list as to where we have to be. So you will see a Godrej or a Prestige or a Brigade, or any of anybody who is intending to list also.
Right. Right.
Like in the next 3 years or 5 years, Hyderabad is a tick box that they have to be there because it's the second largest market in South.
Right.
One of top 5 markets in India, and it is the only city that offers open FSI. That you can build, like for instance, to build a 20 lakh square feet. In Bangalore, Prestige might have to acquire about 10 to 12 acres of land depending on the FSI zone. In Hyderabad, they can do it on 5 acres of land.
Right.
So they are going in for the big auctions. They're going in for the government is also facilitating by these big auction numbers and big auctions, and everywhere there is an opportunity for these outstation builders to pick up land and establish a foothold here. Like if you look at the route that most of them have taken, that auction has been a big part of their portfolio.
Okay.
They've picked up big lands in auctions and stuff like that, and then they have capital available at a much lower cost.
Right.
It's not like it is not significantly lower, but it is at a lower cost. But again, they are also answerable to their shareholders and their boards and everything. They are only going to be here as long as the ROI is fine. Ultimately everybody is doing a return on equity, return off equity calculations. So as long as that calculations work fine, they are going to be here. And Hyderabad is a cosmopolitan city where people are coming from different parts of the country to purchase here. They're North Indians, they're South Indians, they're people from other Telugu regions that come and buy here. So it's a very cosmopolitan structure, wherein the appeal of a North Indian or a South a national developer is able to attract audience much better than a local developer today. Right. But again, they are specific to the Western corridor at this moment of time. Most national players are in the Western corridor. So again, it is very important that the differentiation is between developers with good balance sheets and developers with not good balance sheets. Right. So a developer with good balance sheets today can actually match with a national listed peers in terms of their ability to raise debt, or in terms of their ability to complete the project and stuff like that. So today the customers have to be differentiating on those lines. Correct. In terms of the ability of that developer to attract sales in the micro market that he is operating in, and for him to stick to the timelines and finish the project that he is committed to do.
Okay, good. So while these national players play their game, anything specific about the local players who are not A plus grade but A grade or B plus grade, like from a person's perspective, when they are going to buy this house and they're choosing between a A plus and a B plus.
So see, again, you have to look at the micro market which you are in. Like if you are looking at any specific micro market, you can choose the top 5 builders. Then they necessarily, in some micro markets, a national builder might not feature in your micro market because he's not there, or because the inventory that he has might not be suitable for you. So you can make a list of top 5 builders. Unfortunately, what is happening is that today the builder, the buyer has to do a lot of diligence because it's not an apples to apples comparison anymore.
Right.
So let me give you an example in terms of usable space or floor space efficiency or a carpet area definition. Each developer has his own definition of it, as in terms of super built up area definition is very different from A builder to B builder. So typically most national builders are stretching it. The local developers put it at 25%, 26%. The national developers are taking it to 34%, 35% to 40%, which I think is where that it puts a lot of onus on the buyer as to take the same specific 2,000 square feet plan between the five developers and look at, okay, what kind of efficiency do I get out of this 2,000 square feet? You might be paying the same 1 crore rupees or 2 crore rupees for the same 2,000, but the net efficiency rate is very important. So they need to look at floor plans, they need to look at layout plans, they need to look at density. So it's becoming slightly more tricky for the the buyer, and that's what I was telling you. You have to be a little more cautious, little more don't lose interest in it, but put a little effort into it. Today, fortunately for them, they can do a lot of this using any of the AI tools. Today one simple thing most of them can do is buy a subscription for that 1 month, feed all the data and take an informed decision on that. So in a micro market, you will always have 5 good developers or somebody with a history in that catchment who has developed a lot of projects in that catchment. They could be leader of that micro market also. So that happens very, very much in Hyderabad. Like for instance, you'll have different micro market leaders in North Hyderabad, East Hyderabad, South Hyderabad, and West Hyderabad. So you can always choose the micro market leaders and try and purchase from them, because they will have a better traction on their product.
They've already known the market there.
And they will price the product more appropriately than the national developers.
Right.
So the choice is very individual market centric.
So RERA was supposed to bring in full transparency, and that's why it was introduced, right? About the finances, about the timelines. It gives the comfort to the buyer, and with every quarterly that the builder is supposed to go and upload the current status, and still we see a lot of projects being delayed. Okay, so what is with this, and who's the worst getting affected in this, and how can a consumer protect themselves, and how much of it is RERA a help to them?
See, RERA has addressed some basic fundamental issues in terms of setting up a guidelines as to how, but it is now time to evaluate certain basic tenets of RERA and revisit them and say, are they really working in favor of the customers? So we definitely need to look at certain basic definitions at this point, like simple things like we were discussing about how super built up area definition is different for each developer. Should we actually do a standardization, because most developers are not selling in carpet areas. They're still selling on super built up areas, and that challenge still exists in the market. So why not do a clear definition of it? Even in terms of information access on a RERA website today, it is very difficult.
Right.
Most developers have a different way of filling data. For a layman, it is very difficult to access that kind of data. There is a little, we are in a AI era today where, digital interfaces are becoming very easy, but somehow we choose a very archaic way of, putting together information on a RERA website, wherein, some developers do put in a lot more information than other developers, and some developers, other than the initial registration, don't put in a lot more information on the RERA website. So for the developer, for an end user, that's a challenge as to how does he get all the information. So there needs to be a definite standardization that needs to come in the sense as to how information is going to be assembled on the RERA website and how it is accessible to the end user, so that it will also, make them, like for instance, the location based search that is available, it is not very proper. Other than this, what happens when the developer doesn't meet his timelines? You have RERA as a recourse forum, but effectively that is not like, it is also important for the developer and the customer to, most developers, the rules are written, but the spirit of RERA is not being followed.
Okay.
The enforcement has to be there in spirit of, the document. The idea was that, the capital that is raised for the project is going to be utilized within the project. So most developers, like for instance, we still have today also a lot of OTP sales happening, or we still have OTP sales as in like without permissions
Yeah,
are happening. Those need to be checked. I mean, that distorts the markets a great deal. We still have, pre-sale of inventory by channel partners or subsidiary companies. So most developers have a very clever way of working around the rules. So those need to be looked into. We see a lot of, even prominent developers, national players doing this, like, they are skirting around the rules. It's not, legally they're right, but somewhere ethically I think there is a problem there, in terms of channel partners not clearly telling the buyer that about their interest in the transactions, or there are a lot of gray areas, but these are all nuances that RERA needs to cover. Like the first phase is done, as in you have the rules and you have the frameworks and etc is there, but now the focus has to be on implementation.
So there is honesty in it, but there's no transparency in it.
A lot more effort from the industry side, a lot more effort from the government side, a lot more effort from the customer side needs to go into making RERA a better institution than what it is right now.
So for the customers, the end users, like, will be watching this, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of help is RERA as of today?
See, RERA has just become one more forum at this point of time. It is not an absolute forum as such. Like the customers, I mean, fundamentally the recourse methodology has changed. If you have a problem, you might go to RERA and complain about whatever whatever is the problem, and that is the primary authority. But it is not like, it's fundamentally altered the way information is coming to the customer, or it is not, it is improved. It is definitely improved the general market, but we've done about 1.0. Now it needs to go to 2.0, 3.0 and 4.0. The challenges are very different than what they were in 2016, 2015. There we had projects which were not getting delivered at all.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you were in 2009 markets, for instance. We had a flurry of launches in 2009-10 markets. And then there were no end deliveries for about 6 years, 7 years. And, but today we have not seen those challenges, as in like majority of them. 80% of the projects are maybe within about a year and a half of their scheduled, but not the 4-year, 5-year deadline. But there are other problems, data discrepancies, misrepresentation, which is also a very serious problem. Industry is very creative in selling, so the government also needs to get a little more creative in terms of how to deal with the industry.
Transparency should be there for the
absolutely.
That's what is missing, right?
Yes,
fair enough. Yeah. Hyderabad luxury launches have crossed 10 crores, a flat. And there is a lot of unsold inventory in the luxury segment for the projects above 5 CR. The 1.5 to about 3.5 CR is also absorbed in the market. But when it goes above 5 CR, there is a lot of unsold inventory out there. Where do you think, is a peak to this for the luxury Hyderabad market? And what's the way forward with it?
See, one important distinction with Hyderabad and other major metro cities in India is that we always want big homes, large homes.
Right.
So that trend is not today's trend. Our 3 BHKs have been bigger, our 4 BHKs, even our 2 BHKs have always been bigger. We did a minimum 1100 square feet 2 BHKs when other cities were doing 650, 700 or 800. So the spaces have always been bigger.
Right.
So our 2 BHKs are bigger, our 3 BHKs are bigger. Now, the thing with luxury inventory as such, there are two kinds of luxury inventory that is happening in the core market like Kokapet, Neopolis and all that. This luxury inventory is more a replacement for the villa inventory. We are not able to put together villa inventory in the West Corridor because of the land prices, and we are trying to attract those buyers into the luxury inventory that is available. And the other luxury inventory is actually the villa inventory that is coming in, which has been traditionally there, which continues to be there, which will continue to be there. So there you could see, a 20 crore villa or 25 crore villa also, or a 50 crore villa also happening in the next couple of years, because I'm seeing some concepts wherein, a 50 crore villa in this micro market will not be surprising at all.
True, agree.
As a percentage, if you look at as a stock, as a percentage in terms of how much is luxury inventory, it is minuscule percentage. In the overall inventory position that is there, there could be about, let's say, 50 to 75 luxury housing projects today, compared to some, 300, 500,000 odd projects that are there in the city overall in terms of the density. But what the luxury numbers pop out like, they are the entire city inventory. No, they are a very small micro market inventory, which are catering to the existing luxury markets like, Jubilee Hills, Banjara Hills, or Kokapet, where previously Gachibowli, where independent housing was there, or villa communities were there. It's a natural extension for those luxury housing. And see, what happens is a trend and a cycle. After COVID, we saw a lot of premiumization in housing. So a 1600 square feet 3 BHK became a 2600 3 BHK. So people wanted slightly bigger homes and so on and so forth. A 3,500 4 BHK became 6,000 square foot. So that premiumization trend played out in those couple of years where there was such a sales velocity, but that trend seems to be reversing at this moment, in the sense that there is enough inventory in that, but we will continue to see a lot more luxury formats now catering from a service oriented way. Like you will have a lot of branded residences that are coming in. You will see a lot of luxury brands being launched with a collaboration with a hotel or with something that we've seen in Dubai. Those kind of, wherein service becomes the baseline for luxury. It's not the physical space or the kind of infrastructure that goes in. It's the after service. So you will have like branded very, very interesting branded residences names are going to come in. Like you must have heard about Trump residences coming in. There are going to be other Brigade has done something with the Intercontinental.
Prestige is also doing in Rajendra, right?
A lot of these branded residences are going to come up in
something
in the future.
also happening.
So what will happen in terms of the trend of luxury residences, from being beautiful, the next focus is about how beautifully they work.
They work, correct.
So luxury trend will continue because we have a appetite for larger spaces. But just simply putting together a project is no longer luxury.
But to counter that, like last month or a couple of months back, there was an article in one of the newspapers, either in DC or in Times, in Narsingi and Kokapet, like, these luxury so-called projects, which were about 13,000 rupees a square feet. The builders are desperate, and they're even like, you take a bag and you give them one payment down, and they're selling it for 6,500 rupees.
See, again, we were again discussing this before. There are different kinds of developers today in a micro market. So there, and different kinds of deals that happen. Like, if you stretch a payment over a 5-year window, the price is something different. If you pay on a single day, the price is different. So everybody is doing a debt calculation, interest calculation as to how the interest, so there could be different price points.
So you're telling that the project could be handed over 5 years later.
5 years later, 6 years later, and so on and so forth. And the developer is doing forward calculation as the price and everything. And see, what happens in terms of an OTP deals are very different from the regular papers. Like again, I'm saying, luxury is no longer about a 6,000 square feet unit. Luxury is also about, it's not just about whether your house is, it's also about how good the facility management is tomorrow, how good your neighbors are. Like for instance, some projects in the same catchment command very different value.
Agreed.
Right? So it is also about the neighborhood, the community, the experience, the maintenance. That is also going to be very important. Let me give you a simple example, not apples to apples comparison. But if you look at the Budwell layout, the hill lock where it is there are about 4 or 5 layouts. In one layout, it is about 70,000 rupees per square yard price. Another layout is at about 2 lakh rupees per square yard, It is also because of the size of the unit, the maintenance. Each one was done about 10-15 years back, right? It is playing out very differently. At that point, the difference was very limited, but today it is playing out very differently. So going forward, communities will define which community is going to be a luxury community or not.
Right.
Because to see, maintenance costs today have become 7 rupees to 10 rupees to 15 rupees in some communities. So you will also need customers who are coming in tomorrow to be able to afford those kind of services tomorrow. Today, to maintain a 60,000, 1 lakh square feet clubhouse is not going to be easy. So there's going to be a lot of cost around it. And also, most of these luxury communities also need to create spaces for physical infrastructure, as in like, some playground or some outdoor activity spaces and all that. So it will play out very differently in terms of not every high rise is a luxury product. Not everybody who has an acre and building, 50 floors is a luxury. So you calling yourself luxury is not going to make you a luxury product. The definition of it has changed. Previously, if you do air condition, Italian marble, this, and do a good specifications project, I don't think that's a very narrow definition of what a luxury product is.
I mean, just the amenity.
A good luxury product will always find buyers.
Right.
That demand will continue
to grow, and the market is there.
The premiumization of housing is going to happen. We've seen this in other parts of the world also. It will continue to happen here also. Whether it is not only in a category of 6,000 square foot and above, it will start to happen in the 1,000 to 1,500 category, 1,500 to 2,000, because people are expecting a better life experiences for themselves. It is not just about square footage or whatever it is, the kind of neighbors, the kind of people they interact with, the community experiences, the kind of community experiences the community themselves can curate, or the clubhouses and so on and so forth. So all of this will come into picture.
Got it. Next question is, when it comes to, you've been again like 2 decades in this market, right? The marketing has changed over time.
Yes.
Right? Previously, it used to be hoardings and pamphlets and, just walk-ins happening directly.
Right.
And newspaper ads.
Yes.
Now, channels have changed more towards digital, right? So, in today's market, right, what is the percentage of digital to traditional?
So again, compared to 20 years when we started out, there were very limited channels. There was a newspaper, a hoarding, or your project itself. Because we were all in small micro markets. The places where you could do projects, it was today Hyderabad, within the ring road limits, the perimeter is about 160 odd kilometers.
Right.
So there is a lot of land or lot of opportunity as to where you can put together a product. And today, a customer is not restricted in terms of location. Like the same customer could be situated in a Satamrai or a Tukkuguda or a Kollur or a Mokila.
Right.
So it's a very diverse location. So in the sense today, digital has become a very important tool. But the traditional tools do exist. But a majority of a marketing budget today is going towards digital tools.
What is the percentage today?
I would say it is about 60-40 at this point of
60
time.
is digital
and
is
in terms of marketing budgets at this point of time, yes. Roughly, digital is taking about a percentage, 1% of your entire sales cost process. I think is going into digital, predominantly going to Google, Meta, and other aggregating platforms and all that. But majority to Google and Meta at this point of time. But that might change going forward in terms of how much we need to spend on how the whole landscape will change in the next 3 to 5 years with AI tools coming in.
And there'll be new platforms which will emerge, like ChatGPT started ads.
Yes.
Right. In fact, we got a new player in the market. Jio.
Okay.
Jio has started self-serving ads.
Right. Yes.
And that's we just launched last week. YouTube has about 350 or 370 million users, and Jio has about 400 odd million users, and so that's another new channel to get into it. So how much does digital marketing help? Previously it used to be word of mouth. We were in micro communities. Now people, like you rightly said, they're not restricted by. I have a shop in Secunderabad, so let me find something in Padmarao Nagar, which is 2-3 kilometers away from there, and go back and come. Right now, people work in high-tech city, they work in Gachibowli, they work in financial district, and they still stay in Mokila or they stay in far away. So, how much does for a builder or a developer, is digital marketing important in today's date and age? And from your experience that you've seen change in the change market, right? Previously, a customer used to come, your sales team would show them the brochure and everything, right? How much is a buyer or a lead before he comes to you knows about you because of these channels?
I think a certain perception, unfortunately, is built about the developer based on their digital presence. That's sometimes, some developers are still in the traditional mode, and most the new age developers are doing. See, digital also is a double-edged sword. Certain developers have a very good experience on digital, but in the real world, their products could be not so good or whatsoever. But definitely, a lot of traffic is getting generated through digital medium, because it is easier for them also to get educated on multiple projects at this point of time before shortlisting.
Right.
See, today if you are a buyer with about 2 crore budget, saying I work in Raidurg area, then you will have to evaluate at least about 25 to 30 projects. So you don't have 25 to 30 Sundays to visit each and every project, because if you're looking at about 2 crore budget, you'll have like at least 25 opportunities in 10 different directions. It's far more easier for you to evaluate them digitally, shortlisted down to about 7 to 8 projects, and then see, okay, this works for me in terms of location, or my kids, or my family, or my association with other friends, or social structures and stuff like that, and you take a call on that. But in a micro market also, like for instance, if you're looking at Neopolis as a micro, you still have to evaluate about 8 to 10 developers. Right. So then you have to find out what they have, whether it is in your price point. There's certain basic checkpoints that you say, this doesn't work for me. I'm at 100 rupee price point, I don't want to go to 125 rupees price point. So all that basic checks are happening digitally or online. So how are you going to be present when the customer is checking for that information at that point of time is very important, right? Then only you are in the consideration list. If you're digitally absent, then you need to make a lot more effort to get into that consideration list. So it's a very competitive space. But when you go to micro markets where the competition is limited and the developers are limited, and the catchment is also dependent, your dependency catchment is also smaller, you don't need to necessarily spend so much on digital,
because it's a small market. People already know the brand over there. Yeah.
So if your location is there and your project is coming up, and you will this trend of day zero sales, where you have to do 30% inventory on day zero, 25%. That if you want to do all that, then you have to do very heavy investment into digital. But if you are a traditional developer where you want to be safe, and you want to get the project up first before going into sales market, then you can take a slightly lesser investment into digital. Yes.
So previously it was the pharma city. Okay, now it is the future city, right? There has been a change, the gears have changed with it, right? So is it a better opportunity, or is it, that a person has to be more cautious about, with the changing dynamics over there? People were all geared up about the pharma city, the government had announced, now they have changed the face to it. So what's your take on it? Like, is there going to be increased further, or what is it? Yeah.
See, the previous governments have made an effort to acquire land for a pharma city, and they were pharma is a very important industry in this city. I mean, they've contributed to jobs, and in terms of economic activity, they're one of the large employment categories in this city. A dedicated pharma city would have been a very interesting idea, which at that point of time the government felt. And so the idea has been tweaked a little bit, and it has been broken down into 6 or 8 categories of different projects. But again, one of the most important things is that a buyer needs to look into is that it will take a long time. It is not an overnight project. It's a 15-20 year a window in which infrastructure, the projects and everything will come up, employment in any meaningful format will need to come in, it will take some time. So
Okay.
people with a large investment in timeline, in terms of their investment timeline, should look at this opportunity. It is not something that is going to be, something that's going to happen overnight. There are certain legal challenges around this. In terms of Pharma City and Fourth City, and the 19,000 or odd acres that they have
Right.
acquired, there are certain legal challenges. We have to see how the government is going to work around that. There are certain environmental clearances, certain clearances that they have got based on certain submissions that they've done in the past.
Right.
So how they're going to look into it, how they're going to work around it, that is a very important factor. Having said that, they are working on certain infrastructure, like for instance, the road connectivity from the ORR to Pharma City will be ready probably next year. So that's a key infrastructure that is available. They are already allocating lands to, right now only data centers at this point of time. But hopefully they will start allocating to other industries, slightly non-polluting life sciences industries and so on and so forth. So we have to be very, it should not be like, it's a cluster of data centers and so on and so forth. If a meaningful employment generating opportunities can come. See, services industry takes very lesser time. In a sense, you could have an IT cluster develop. Like for instance, if you look at the entire Raidur cluster on the other side of Raheja Mindspace, which is non-existent up until COVID, or suddenly if you see it as all they put together about 3.5 lakh jobs or 4 lakh jobs, whether it is Satwa Knowledge City or whether it is with other RMZ or any other developers that they put together the space or the buildings. It didn't take a lot of time from 2018 to 25, 27 in about 7 to 8 years time. But industries don't work like that. They essentially take a lot of time to commission, for them to function at full capacities. It takes a lot more time for it to happen. So essentially, it should not be looked like the service industry opportunity.
Okay.
Like what the core high-tech city or, that kind of growth might not happen in over there. A different kind of growth. There is an opportunity for the government also because there's a lot more land available, about 16 to 20,000 acres of land is available with the government. So if they have to attract industry, see, today industry has a challenge in terms of land, so if the government can effectively allocate that industry, land to industry, and good industry come in and good employment comes into Hyderabad, that's always a plus.
Right.
Whether it was about, the intent is the same, as in like they wanted to attract one particular kind of industry. Here they want to broaden and diversify into 5-6 different categories of industries. But the idea is that it will overnight become a services corridor. That's a far-fetched idea.
Right.
That's a far-fetched idea.
Fair enough. All right. So fractional ownership platforms like PropShare, okay, now they're SEBI regulated. All right. Now, what's your take on this? Say, like, if a person has got, say, like, they don't have the whole money to buy the property, but say somebody has 15 lakh rupees and they want to start investing in property. If you can just guide on it.
Right. So this is a very, very interesting opportunity. I think micro REITs, I think, are a fantastic product. With SEBI regulating them, there are certain preconditions as to what a micro REIT can acquire. They have to have majority of their portfolio as pre-rented properties and stuff like that. So it is for people who are looking at yields, as in rental income, and then some format of growth appreciation. So this platform works. You can enter in with as low as a SIP also. Or a small investment also. Right. So if you look at commercial real estate, it gets very expensive to acquire. Right? You can't own, like, today you can own a part of your own office you're working in.
Right.
Like somebody working in the Knowledge City or Raheja Mindspace can buy their own office through a REIT. This is not a micro REIT, but a regular REIT.
Right.
So they can buy the very building that they are working in today. Fortunately for us in Hyderabad, both Raheja and Knowledge City, both of them are listed platforms. And, Brookfield has listed also, and Embassy is a listed platform. There are multiple platforms, about 8 or 9 platforms that are available today. If you look at the regular REITs, they are bigger companies, bigger projects that are there, bigger township kind of, large portfolio of opportunity. Then you have small individual units which are in micro REITs. Both categories of products are pretty interesting at this point. It's a very good entry vehicle for somebody who's looking at about 8% or kind of a yield numbers, so that platforms are mostly suitable for them. But where I'd be very cautious is to get into unregulated fractional ownership, whether it is promoted by platforms or developers themselves. Most developers also sell fractional ownership of the unit.
Correct.
I think the larger experiences of the buyers has been very bad in this category. So if you intend to get into this fractional ownership as an idea, the better one would be to go to the listed REITs or the micro REITs. Even in micro REITs, the opportunities at that point of time is slightly limited because it's an evolving industry.
Right.
It's just about a year or two old. So it will take some time for the industry to evolve, platforms to become bigger. But if you look at the REITs as such, some of them are big names, like big names in the world also.
Right.
So those names are available, and you could start your journey from there. Try and understand how it is working for you. The instruments are more liquid there in the bigger
In the
REITs.
bigger game, right? Yeah, they'll have
And
more
then
options.
come to micro REITs, depending on if you have very good idea about a micro market. Like let's say that there could be some very interesting opportunity, because there is a category below which the bigger REITs cannot come in, but there could be small retail opportunities or a hospital opportunity or a hotel opportunity somewhere, which might be listed on a micro REIT platform.
Right.
You could look at those.
do that.
But I would definitely not recommend a fractional ownership of unregulated entities,
right.
whether it is by the developer or by the standalone unregulated entities. That's a definite no-go zone. You could start with the REITs, then look at micro REITs, and then between the comfort, it's a very important idea in your portfolio. Like if you allocate a percentage, then REIT should be a particular percentage in
So this 8% is including the appreciation and the rental, or
somewhere in terms of in that number, some numbers could be better, some numbers could be lower, but that is the best.
8 to 9%.
8 to 9% is where you can look at.
That's not bad, like for
Yeah.
safe investment. Yeah. So if you had to give one non-negotiable checklist, which consists of top 3 things, could be more. Regardless of whatever brand, however big that the developer is. So this is for the consumers when they go to buy a house. What is that checklist supposed to mandatorily have in it?
There are quite a few, but let's narrow it down to the most important thing, that is title due diligence.
Title?
Check the title of the property. Title due diligence is very important. With an auction properties, that title due diligence becomes easier, but with most of the other projects you might have that is fundamentally one of the biggest reason for a project delay.
Okay.
Second is the project delivery cycles that the developer is committed in the past, and what is committed and what has happened. You always have to inspect the past projects of the developer from an intent standpoint of view to delivery standpoint of view. Whether it is whether the finished good is as per your expectation or not. The brochures look very glossy, the websites, the digital media, they all look glossy.
Right.
But what is actually
Delivered
happening
on floor.
And third most important thing in terms of the floor plans or the carpet area or the layouts of the project, that you need to look at and focus it more diligently. In terms of if you want to add one more point, is the value.
Okay.
The price per square feet that you are paying. Do a value comparison in terms of the spec or in terms of the layout or the efficiency, and get a value derivative out of it, and see if you're paying the right value and you're buying it for the right reasons. As in, is this good for my living experience? Is it suitable for my living experience or not? Not once you start putting yourself and saying, will I go to this location and live here or not? Your perspective changes quite a bit, rather than looking at it in terms of a brochure. You say, every day I have to go 20 kilometers, my child has to go 5 kilometers, my wife has to go X kilometers to her work. So, or the family as a unit will have to evaluate how they look at that particular unit being their home,
Right.
not a piece of real estate or a document in your locker.
Right. And when you said the word value over there, right, with the money perspective per square feet, is there any formula to derive that? Or, I mean, not formula, but any, like, one is competitor, but any other way to...
See, again, here, in terms of, most developers put everything in super built-up areas. One of the way to evaluate it is in terms of carpet area or efficiency of the usable space. There are a lot of small little detailings here, like, somebody could have bigger balconies, or somebody could have bigger bedrooms and bigger living spaces. Grids are very important. Some people might have 12 feet grids. Some people will have 10.5 feet grids. So certain furniture layouts are not at all suitable.
Right.
So you have to look, that's what I'm saying, evaluate yourself being in that kitchen, being in that bedroom, being in that balcony, and look at the space in the way that it would be suitable for you. And the next question is evaluate the competition.
Right.
Look at the specifications. Sometimes, a 1 lakh square feet clubhouse could be great, but if it is being shared by 10,000 people, it doesn't necessarily mean that a 15,000 square feet clubhouse between, 300 residents could be a great idea.
True.
So the percentage of population was where the clubhouse, amenity that is being shared. And also, see, most amenities are not used by everyone. Like, if you don't need the swimming pool, that's not part of the swimming pool size doesn't matter to you. So the value perception is entirely individual. As in, you might, if you have, let's say, an appetite for playing sport, then you might choose a basketball court or a tennis court or a badminton court or a squash court or not. But if you don't have an appetite for sport, or if you have an appetite for community sports like a football or a cricket, it is generally not going to be part of your community. Then you'll have to look for a local catchment where you could rent a playground, or you could play where it is comfortable for you. So each and every micro factor, so you can prepare your own value checklist as to what works for me. The developer might list about 100 things, but only 5 or 7 things that work for you, which are like a definite priority. For instance, a kitchen is a big important thing. You spend a lot of time, because when you start looking at it as, how each kitchen is very different, right? The way you cook or your wife cooks in a house is very different. Your mom cooks or the way you cook is very different, right? So you have to visualize kitchen space, the utility space, would my dishwasher fit in? Would my washing machine fit in? Where is the laundry space? How do I use? Where is my air conditioning space? So you have to visualize space as you're going to be using that space, and then chart out a value checklist. Okay, do I compromise on a utility space? Do I compromise on the kitchen space? Is it okay for me? Because smaller bedrooms are okay for me because I don't spend so much time within. But if it's a sub-nuclear family, smaller bedrooms are okay. But if it's a slightly joint setup, then you might need a slightly bigger bedrooms, because the living spaces are effectively slightly non-private spaces, right? So each family will have a value checklist. So that starts from the floor plan
to the,
then goes out to the layout plan, then to the catchment in which they are in, then the price at which they want to pay for that. So sometimes some amenities could be unnecessary. Right, unnecessarily adding your cost of maintenance and all that. Sometimes you also have to decide, do I need to be in this community? Will I be able to pay that kind of recurring maintenance costs also? Because today most apartments are charging upwards of 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 for maintenance. That's another additional cost. The electricity bills are all commercial in nature, so the electricity bill costs are higher. The water costs are all metered today. So all of this will add into your overall cost of living.
Cost of living goes higher.
So you'll have to make your own value checklist. The value checklist, the price per square feet is the first factor, not the last factor and the only factor. So you have to make your own value checklist as to what are the priority areas for you.
Right.
Social infrastructure is a priority for, like for instance, if you have two kids in the 6 years and 7 years, that window, wherein, you have to be very careful in terms of, the classes that are going to be there for them, or, if you have kids in that intermediate or 10th class, then you have to see where is the nearest IIT coaching center or whatever, whatever other coaching center that is available. So it's very important that each family makes their own value checklist and then decides on, like, this will get 10 points, this will get 10, maybe price will get 50 points, but there are 10 other things which will give you 5 points, and then you have to balance all that out. Yes, especially when you're choosing between two different micro markets. Like if you're looking at Tukuguda as one micro market and Patancheru as another micro market, then you have to put a different point system for both the micro markets and look at them.
Makes sense. All right, so let's start with the rapid fire.
Yes.
Okay. East Hyderabad or West? 1 crore gun on your head.
You have a better opportunity in East Hyderabad in terms of living experience for 1 crore.
For 1 crore. Okay. All right. Most overrated locality in Hyderabad right now?
A lot of them actually, but the farther you go from the ring road today, you're going to get into trouble in terms of plotting development. I see Shadnagar market as most overrated, or Yadadri market as another very overrated markets.
Okay.
For residential living, if you're going too far away from the employment nodes, like you're going almost till Sangareddy, or you're going to Shankarpalli, and then it's slightly difficult at this point of time.
Okay. Apartments, villas or plot, what actually appreciates fastest over 3 years?
In the large trends that we've seen in the last 15 odd years, plots do appreciate better. But again, what we were discussing in other previous answer is, what appreciates better in terms of apartments, villas or plots is the wherever in that particular opportunity where you're buying, if the communities are better, your appreciation percentage is always better.
Got it.
If you buy into a plotting development with a better community, then your appreciation is much higher. The same is with apartments and villas. So community is very critical in terms of the choice. Villas are much safer as an opportunity in terms of, apartments are much better for rental yields. Villas are somewhere in the middle as to, appreciation versus safety. Plots are again, they give better appreciation.
Okay. All right. One developer in Hyderabad you trust with your money?
Aparna.
Biggest lie in the industry, biggest lie the industry tells first time buyers?
The biggest lie, I think, most of you would have heard, is that the inventory is over, or it won't be available if you don't make a choice.
The FOMO, yeah.
The ability of the sales teams to create FOMO, I think it's not a lie, but it is more like that is how business runs in this industry. There is always a better opportunity. There is always a good opportunity. If it isn't in this project, it will be in the next project, or the project adjacent to this. It's not like an absolute inventory that there is only one inventory that is available. So at any point of time, the industry tries to push the individual buyer to make an immediate decision. And most information in that process is to that effect.
Okay. Rira, game changer or glorified paperwork?
At this point of time, it's not a game changer, but it is made some important fundamental changes in the way developers are behaving. But it is not a game changer. We have a long way to go before it becomes a game changer.
All right. Okay. Ready to move or under construction? What would you personally never touch again?
It's a very difficult choice. Again, ready to move in, unfortunately, in terms of ready to move in apartments, the choice becomes a little limited because most ready to move in units have ground floors, first floor, second floors, kind of an inventory, which was the inventory choice is a little tricky. But I would say somewhere in the middle, as in like, you wait until the structure is complete, where there is another 40 to 50 or 60% of, or 40-50% of inventory is still available, where you get a choice of inventory choices, plus there is a very clear visibility as to, okay, I will get this home in 2 years or two,
Right.
I wouldn't, I'm not a very comfortable person with a 5-6 year window, wherein deliveries are
Right.
5-6 years away. Yeah, that's not something I'm not very comfortable with. Wherein by the time the developer has some skin in the project, if you enter in, then it's a safe process.
Yeah, you feel confident
Yes,
about
yes,
it, right?
yes.
Okay, right. And the last, one thing you wish buyers would stop doing.
Do everything in terms of only price comparison. Just don't do a price comparison, do a value comparison. Like we've discussed, do a value checklist for yourself. Don't look at only amenities, or don't look at floor plans more. Very important, look at floor plans. Don't just look at the two numbers, that is the price per square feet. There are a lot of hidden charges underneath them. Please look at all the charges. Please look at the total cost of acquiring a property. Some floor plans, because of the way they are designed, might result in higher costs of doing interiors and stuff like that. So look at the overall value that you derive from a property. Then look at a headline number as, this is 5,000 rupees per square feet, this is 5,500 rupees per square feet. The value delivery could be quite similar also, but sometimes the 5,500 product would be delivering much higher value to you. Don't look at the price per square feet number in absolute terms, look at the other factors also.
Cool. All right. Great, Sudhamshu. I think we're going to wind up now, so I'll have my last word. Okay? So, great, Sudhamshu. Great having you over here today. And in fact, this is not in the script, but I'm just genuinely telling you of the conversation that we've had. You can have one parallel career, and I don't know if people are doing this in the market or not, but home buyers, a lot of your conversations, because I've also just been a home buyer very recently. There's a lot of meat in your conversations that people need a professional guidance with on this. That's a parallel field. You can have a checklist, you can have a team, and it'll be so much of a value for home buyers that it brings in. And I'm just genuinely telling this. When you were conversing a few things, I didn't consider this. Oh yeah, there's some meat in this. So people do need that, and that's fab for you to share that knowledge. People who get it, who do not, they will eventually get there. So thank you so much for being over here today, and it's great having you.
Thank you for your time. I hope your viewers enjoy the conversation. It was very pleasant for me. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.